The real reason why women lead more happier lives than men is most of them don't have wives. My wife dressed up as a policewoman last night and said, "I'm arresting you for being good in bed." After 2 minutes, she said she was dropping the charges due to lack of evidence.
I love it.
You can't relate that.
My brother had a vasectomy a few years ago, and he found out the hard way it doesn't always work. And it can make your baby black.
Fun fact of the day, did you know that a man's pickle juice actually contains beta endorphins? And studies have suggested that it actually helps diminish feelings of depression in women. So just a friendly reminder to get your daily dose of vitamin D.
Last 10 years, there's actually been 20% increase in women in government, which is probably good, but there's also a 20% increase in the national debt, most likely unrelated. But
this one, why go out for hamburger if you have steak at home? Well, what if your steak has a attitude problem?
If God didn't want women to be cooking, he wouldn't have put milk and eggs in their body.
A couple has a baby, but very unexpectedly, the baby is born without arms or legs or even a body. It's just a head. On the day of their son's 21st birthday, the father decides to take his son for his first official real drink. So they go to the local pub where the father proudly puts the head on the bar and orders 2 shots of the finest. The father takes the drinks and takes down his shot while pouring it into his son's mouth. Lo and behold, the head starts wiggling and shaking, and suddenly, dramatically, it sprouts an entire torso. "What the hell?" screams the dad. "Bartender, 2 more shots!" And they do it again, and the torso and head start wiggling and shaking, and boom, the son sprouts 2 arms. "Unbelievable!" screams the dad. "2 more shots!" And this time, of course, the son and the subsequent shaking and wiggling leads to him instantly sprouting 2 legs. "2 more shots!" screams the dad. "Holy wait!" screams the son. "Look, I can walk, I can run!" And with that, the son goes running out the door, straight into traffic, and gets obliterated by a bus. Says the bartender. Should have quit while he was ahead.
A married couple got into an accident, and the husband's face was badly burned. The doctor told him that they couldn't graft any skin from his body because he was too skinny, so the wife offered to donate some of her own skin. However, the only skin on her body that the doctor felt was suitable would have to come from her buttocks. The husband and wife agreed that they would tell no one about where the skin came from, and they requested that the doctor also honor their secret. After all, this was a very delicate matter. After the surgery was completed, everyone was astounded at the man's new face. He looked more handsome than he ever had before. All his friends and relatives just went on and on about his youthful beauty. One day he was alone with his wife, and he was overcome with emotion at her sacrifice. He said, "Dear, I just want to thank you for everything you did for me. How can I possibly repay you?" She replied,
"My darling, I get all the thanks I need every time I see your mother kiss you on the cheek."
Mafia boss decided to hire a deaf accountant to handle their finances, so he won't hear any dealings they discuss. But as time passed, they noticed large sums of money disappearing and realized the accountant is stealing. The boss brings in an interpreter and sits the accountant down. "Ask him where the money is," said the boss to the interpreter. The interpreter nods and signs, "Where is the money?" The accountant, pretending innocence, signed back, "What money? I don't know. What are you talking about?" "He said he doesn't know about any money," the interpreter translated. Impatient, the boss pulled out a gun and shouted, "Tell him if he doesn't tell us where the money is, I'll blow his head off." Sweating, the accountant signs, "The money is in a duffel bag, hidden under my cousin's porch." The interpreter translates, "He says you don't have the balls to pull the trigger." The elderly couple is celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary.
Dear, I need to ask you something.
The wife looks at her husband with curiosity.
It has always bothered me that our 10th child didn't look like the rest.
The wife's expression changes to one of concern.
Now, I want you to know that these 75 years have been wonderful, and your answer won't change that. But I must know, did he have a different father?
The wife drops her head, unable to look her husband in the eye, and then confesses.
Yes, he did.
The old man is very shaken, the reality hitting him harder than he expected.
Who was he? Who was the father?
The woman drops her head again, saying nothing at first as she tries to find the courage to tell her husband the truth. Then finally she says to him,
"It was you."
Elderly couple walks into a fast food restaurant. They order 1 hamburger, 1 order of fries, and 1 drink. The old man unwraps the plain hamburger and carefully cuts it in half. He places 1 half in front of his wife. He then carefully counts out the fries, dividing them into 2 piles and neatly placing 1 pile in front of his wife. He takes a sip of the drink, his wife takes a sip, and then sets the cup down between them. As he begins to eat his few bites of hamburger, the people around them keep looking over and whispering, "That poor old couple, all they can afford is 1 meal for the 2 of them." As the man begins to eat his fries, a young man comes to the table. He politely offers to buy another meal for the old couple. The old man replies that they're just fine. They're just used to sharing everything. The surrounding people noticed the little old lady hadn't eaten a bite. She sits there watching her husband eat and occasionally taking turns sipping the drink. Again, the young man comes over and begs them to let him buy another meal for them. This time, the old woman says, "No, thank you. We are used to sharing everything." As the old man finishes and wipes his face neatly with the napkin, the young man again comes over to the little old lady who has yet to eat a single bite of food and asks, "May I ask what is it you are waiting for?" The old woman answers, "The teeth."
That is disgusting.
They're sharing everything. It's romantic.
Son goes to his dad and says, "Daddy, I fell in love again and want to date this awesome girl." Father, "That's great, son. Who is she?" "It's Sandra, the neighbor's daughter." "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that. I have to tell you something, son, but you must promise not to tell your mother. Sandra is actually your sister." The boy is naturally bummed out, but a couple of months later, "Daddy, I fell in love again and she is even hotter." "That's great, son. Who is she?" "It's Angela, the other neighbor's daughter." "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that. Angela is also your sister." This went on a few more times, and finally the son was so mad, he went straight to his mother crying. He says to his mother, "Mom, I am so mad at Dad. I fell in love with 6 girls and I can't date any of them because Dad is their father." The mother hugs him affectionately and says, "You can date whoever you want. He isn't your father." An atheist was seated next to a little girl on an airplane, and he turned to her and said, "Do you want to talk? Flights go quicker if you strike up a conversation with your fellow passenger." The little girl, who had just started to read her book, replied to the total stranger, "What would you want to talk about?" "Oh, I don't know," said the atheist. "How about why there is no God, or no heaven or hell, or no life after death?" as he smiled smugly. "Okay," she said. "Those could be interesting topics, but let me ask you a question first. A horse, a cow, and a deer all eat the same stuff, grass. Yet a deer excretes little pellets, while a cow turns out a flat patty, but a horse produces clumps. Why do you suppose that is?" The atheist, visibly surprised by the little girl's intelligence, thinks about it and says, I have no idea." To which the little girl replies, "Do you really feel qualified to discuss God, heaven, and hell, or life after death when you don't know shit?"